You're listening to Three Kitchens podcast, hosted by home cooks Erin Walker and Heather Dyer.
Join us as we walk you through our experience with a new recipe, successes and fails. Let's all get inspired, cook better, and eat great food. All right, well, let's start this out with the awkward start that we always do. Hi, I'm Erin Walker, and I am joined by Heather Dyer.
Hello.
And together, we are Three Kitchens Podcast. I don't know. And today, we've got another episode for you. I'm going to take on something that we've had discussions off recordings about. And I didn't really know what it is, but I happened to find a whole bunch of recipes for it. It's called Matrimonial Cake. I have a great-grandmother, and in her book of recipes that I have since inherited, I found quite a few recipes for a matrimonial cake. And I was like, who needs this many recipes for a wedding cake? I wasn't really sure what a matrimonial cake was about, but it's something that I think you know about.
Well, I only know a little bit about based on memories from childhood and going to weddings.
Oh, so you've actually had this at a wedding?
Sure. Well, okay, so what I think of in terms of matrimonial cake is not the wedding cake, the nice tiered, beautiful white wedding cake. That's not matrimonial cake. That's your
Apparently
pretty
not.
ceremonial fancy wedding cake. That's
Yeah.
different.
Yeah.
So matrimonial cake, when you ask me if I've had it at a wedding, I'll say no, because the idea is you take it home with you.
Okay.
In my experience, anyways.
Well,
you
and
get a
this
little
is-
piece and it's wrapped up and it's like it's a keepsake? Not a keepsake, a party favor, kind of. And you take it home with you and then we'll see what your research has told
Well,
you.
that seems really disappointing. If you're going to put in the time and energy and effort into baking or cooking something, it should at least be something somebody eats. Like, do you really want to bring it home and not have people eat
Well,
it?
did you do any reading up on it?
So I did a little bit of reading on this matrimonial cake, and from the majority of what I can find, it sounds like it's something that originated during the Great Depression. There's a lot of talk about it being Scottish, that this cake's been around for a long time, and that it was popularized or became something commonplace during the Great Depression because during the Great Depression there wasn't as much access to the foods that you needed to cook or bake with.
Sugar mainly, right?
Yeah, sugar and flour. And so because this, like, some of them are just oat based, and so this was kind of a cheap way to make a cake. There's a bit of old wives' tale saying that you make a matrimonial cake because it is a smooth filling with crumbly layers, and that you have to take the rough patches of marriage with the smooth parts of marriage.
Okay.
The other one is because the filling is made with dates. This is the racy explanation, that it is a cake of many dates between two sheets.
Oh, cute. That's
Ooh.
cute. I've never heard that, but I think that's
I
kind
thought
of
that was kind of a cute one.
charming.
But yeah,
Yeah.
so there's some of that talk, although I didn't really get into what you do with the matrimonial cake. It sounded more like it was something that at least we can celebrate and have this cake, even though it's not really much of a cake.
Right,
My
right,
opinion on this one.
right. So if I'm remembering right, what you do when I say you take it home and you put it under your pillow. And I don't know, it's wrapped up, obviously.
I hope so.
It is, because it would be sticky, right?
Sticky, crumbly.
And my memory of it is like a fruit cake, which is not my favorite. Like a sticky,
Oh,
jam-packed full of dried fruit. I don't even know what it's made with, to be honest.
interesting.
And so it's wrapped a little square, and you take it home and you put it under your pillow. I don't know if boys did, but girls. We only had girls in my family, so I don't know what maybe the boys didn't take it home. Maybe only girls took it home. I have no idea. And you put it under your pillow and you're supposed to dream of your future husband. have a little bit of
Ah,
magic in there. And then I guess you could eat it if you want. I didn't care for that type of fruitcake, so I don't remember ever really eating it.
did you have a little
Um,
bit of lump in your pillow overnight and a sore neck when you
God,
woke
I had
up?
that sore neck, like it was predicting that first husband. Pain in my neck. No, I don't.
Is that what marriage gives you? It's a pain in the neck, so you have to
Some
get
do.
prepared by sleeping with this cake under your pillow, my sweet dear.
It had more crumble than smooth, perhaps. Uh, uh, and I don't even know. You know how you don't always trust those childhood memories?
Mm.
It's like how much of that is a real memory, or how much of that did I just sort of make up along the
How
way?
many times has it been reinvented in my head as I've tumbled it over again and again?
Or you've never thought of it, so now when you try to bring it up, it's
Mm.
like, I think this is what it was, because I don't think
Mm.
I've ever given much thought to it. And
Yeah,
it's been many, many years. Well, as I've said in past episodes, both my families are of German heritage
yes,
way back, many, many generations back. I don't know if it was like a European tradition that was brought over, 8 generations
oh,
before when they all came here, or
right.
if it was just because it was popularized. Some of my family took on the tradition because it's kind of fun, or maybe they didn't have money for nice cake, so they went the inexpensive route. I don't know. I have no idea.
So the fruitcake you're describing makes me think of like a Christmas fruitcake.
Yes, it's like
Okay,
that.
that is not this cake.
I'm guessing it's not.
Yeah. So be happy that you don't have to
Yay!
choke down this fruitcake and be like, oh, Erin, why did you do this?
Yeah, that heavy lump of
Very
dried fruit.
molassesy.
Yes. Yeah,
Mm.
it was not good. Sorry, cousins, whoever's cake I
I feel like
ate.
there's a time and a place for it, just small slice. Yeah, I don't know. So this matrimonial cake, okay, I'm just gonna come right out and say it. This ain't no cake.
It's one of those things like, this is not pudding.
That's not a pudding. This is a cake that I think we're both gonna love though, because A, there is no icing. There is no decorating of this freaking cake.
Nice.
So with the zero decoration skill level that we've got,
Hmm.
it checks
Bonus.
that box, baby. We've got essentially, I'm going to call it more of like an oatmeal bar with a fruit filling in it.
Oh, okay. This sounds good. This is making me think of a date square. Is it like a
That's
date square?
exactly what it is.
I love
It's date
those.
squares. Apparently, this is what was matrimonial cake because that's what they had access to
Mhm.
for baking and making these ingredients. There wasn't much for sugar, so the dates were used. There wasn't much for flour, so it could be heavier with the oats. But you're essentially making a crumb. Half of it gets pressed down into a pan. You put in your date filling, which I'll talk about afterwards, and then the other half of the mixture goes on top and you bake it.
Yum.
I had no idea that this was matrimonial cake and that this was,
That's one and the same.
it's all
Date
the same.
squares were matrimonial cake. Who knew?
Exactly. Who knew? So, this date filling, I've got a recipe,
Ooh, look at that.
handwriting. Look at, isn't here, take a
I
second,
love
Heather, to
it.
enjoy that old,
It
tilted,
looks, yes.
beautiful handwriting.
It
Okay.
reminds me of my granny's,
Yes.
what I remember of my granny's handwriting.
Ah. So, you bake it in an oven once you've assembled it, and then let it cool down and cut it into squares, and you've got a matrimonial cake.
Hmm.
I'm also going to share with everybody what I make for a fruit filled oatmeal bar, which is apparently exactly the same as this matrimonial cake, except I make it with rhubarb and rose water. And
What?
we are hitting rhubarb season because it's pretend spring again for us here in
Mm-hmm.
Calgary, Alberta. I've got the rhubarb out of my freezer. This is the best thing about this one is again, you don't need fresh fruits or vegetables to do
Mm-hmm.
it. It works really good with frozen stuff because you're going to cook it in a saucepan until it's thick with rose water and a bit of sugar and you've got a fruit-filled oatmeal bar with
Oh,
rhubarb.
yum.
So,
Yum.
rhubarb squares and date squares.
I love stewed rhubarb. That's the way I
Yeah.
eat the rhubarb that I grow. That's how I mostly eat it. I just love it. cook down, a little bit of sugar in there. Here, I just eat that filling with a spoon.
Oh, well, you're
I
better
want to
than
make
me
it.
because here I am with my oatmeal, my sugar, and my flour. I can't have. So I'm just adding a few more calories to the count here.
Oh, but it'll be so good.
Yeah.
Mm.
So I figure we'll find out some more about this matrimonial cake. Dates were just on sale, so I got a nice big tub of dates, and so I'm all set and ready to do this. Hey listeners, are you on the hunt for more cakes to bake? Visit our website, www.threekitchenspodcast.com, and search cakes in our recipe box. We've baked so many different cakes. Some of them are gluten-free, some of them are citrus cakes. We've got chocolate cake, red velvet cake, and of course, all the corresponding episodes where we talk about our experience making them. All right, let's get back to this episode and find out how this one turns out.
Let's talk about some matrimonial cake. How about that?
Ooh, okay. Okay, so we have a couple crumb cakes, squares. I don't know. Matrimonial cake. I don't know if I would ever put this in the cake category, but I'm happy to because it's damn easy to make. So,
Yeah, it's not really cake. I would say it's a square
yeah.
or a
Yeah,
bar.
or a
Maybe a
bar.
bar. It does hold together.
It's kind of crumbly and messy.
Yeah, I
You
suppose
do want to
squares.
eat it with a fork. Okay, so I made two different oat bars. We have the matrimonial cake that had dates in the filling, and then I also made the fruit-filled oatmeal bars with the rhubarb and rose water in the middle. I am so excited about rhubarb season. Even though I have none in my backyard right now, I feel like I keep seeing it everywhere and I'm like, ooh, rhubarb, and then I get sad. So I still have some frozen stuff for my plant last year, and I'm sure my neighbor's got a big rhubarb that she's like, I don't use this. Do you want
What?
it? And I was like,
What is her problem?
well, I'm not going to enlighten her because now I get to
Do not make her
use it,
these bars because then she'll want to keep the rhubarb for herself.
right? This will just be our little secret, Heather.
Just between you and me.
Just between
Nobody
us
else will possibly, well,
and our listeners.
our listener.
So let's start with the matrimonial cake. It is flour and oatmeal, brown sugar, cinnamon, and a half a teaspoon of baking soda. And you mix these together in a bowl, and then you add in, it says 3/4 of a cup of margarine, but you know that we're using butter because we don't have to pretend that it is the Depression quite yet. So we're not rationing that
We're
hard.
getting there, but we're not that desperate
The
quite yet.
droughts are on their way, but we're not quite in the thick of it, right? And then so you want to cut your butter in here. My recommendation always is grate your cold butter into these into anything that you're trying to make into a crumb or anytime you're trying to make a pastry. And so once you've got it grated in, you really want to massage it with your hands until when you hold a clump together, it stays in form, but it's easy to break apart with your thumb.
Okay.
So once you've made the crumb mixture, you can put half of this mixture on the bottom of a pan that's lined with parchment paper. I used I call it my squares pan because it is like inherited from my grandma. It's the only pan I have this size. I don't think I've ever seen a pan this size because I've never really done that much hard shopping for pans because I have a lot of pass-me-downs. But it's the perfect size for making these squares in. I believe it's like 7 by 10. It's just, it's a little guy. It's my favorite pan. It's aluminum. It doesn't like get dark. It's not dark.
I don't have one that size.
Oh, I don't think it's a common size. I don't know. I'll have to keep an eye out and see if I find more because this one's definitely on its way out. It's been used. You can see like the cut marks in it from all of the squares that have been made in this pan. Okay, so you've got that pan lined in parchment paper. You're going to put half of your filling in there and press it down so that it's pretty solid. And then you have to work on your filling, which you're going to make in a saucepan first. So you've got a pound of dates, half a cup of brown sugar, about 3/4 of a cup of water, and again, a half a teaspoon of baking soda. And so you're going to put this all into a pot on your stove and stir it as it heats up. The dates are going to break down. I don't think you have to blend your dates with a blender or anything. I didn't. I didn't find they were big and chunky, but you just cook this over medium heat until it is thick. You want to keep an eye on it because as the sugar breaks down in the water and it starts cooking, you might need to add a little bit more water into there because it's going to froth and bubble. And you know how sugar kind of expands when it heats? You can see it like coming out of the pot. So you got to make sure you're on it to stir it and to add extra water if you need it. Okay, so once you've got this filling made, you don't really have to let it cool. It's going to go into the oven right away. So you spread this out over top of that first layer of crumb, and then you top with the remaining half of crumb and bake in a 350-degree oven until golden. I think this was about 30 minutes. Either way, it was really easy, like no brainer. Very similar recipe for the fruit-filled oatmeal bars that had the rhubarb in them. It's just the amounts are different. So it created a different texture to the crumb and it baked a little bit different. So again, flour, oats, brown sugar, and baking soda to make your crumb, cut in your butter, mix it until it resembles coarse crumbs. I usually do about 2/3 of it on the bottom. And then you've got your rhubarb filling, which is 300 grams of rhubarb, fresh or frozen. I would recommend if it's fresh, just to dice it up so you don't get long, stringy bits that the rhubarb sometimes can have. So the rhubarb plus 2 tablespoons of sugar over medium heat. Let it cook and thicken. And then once you take it off the stove, you add in your tablespoon of rose water because I have noticed over time that when you cook with the rose water, the intensity of the flavor kind of decreases
I think
as
it
you cook with
evaporates
it.
away or something.
Yeah, it disappears. It's not as strong. And I want it to taste like I'm taking a bite out of those roses. So I always put in my tablespoon of rose water right at the end. So then again, you've got 2/3 of your crumb mixture on the bottom, pressed it down, you put your rhubarb filling on top, and then you sprinkle the remaining crumb over the top. Again, bake in a 350 oven for 30 minutes until it's golden. And then for both of these, you want to cool them on a wire rack out of the pan. Or when you first take them out of the oven, they're soft and flexible and they're not going to hold together. And that is not the time to cut these up or you're just going to have rhubarb crumble mess.
Right.
So you want to let them cool fully, sort of in their little parchment package, sitting on the cooling racks. And as everything cools down, it really hardens, at least on the bottom crust that you've pressed. And then they cut nicely into squares. And then you have 2 types of cake that your family is then going to eat up faster than you can say
Matrimonial cake.
matrimonial cake.
That is true.
I always feel like they're better like the second or third day. So with both of these, I set out the what you're allowed to eat, and then I hid a couple of the squares off to the side for a few days. And I would say it made a world of difference, especially with the date matrimonial cake, because that filling just got better as it sat longer.
I popped them in the freezer because I didn't want anyone to eat them like right away. So I kind of stuck them in the back of the freezer. And it's the kind of thing that you don't really need to thaw when you take it out.
No.
It's the kind of treat that you can keep in the freezer and eat it right out of the freezer. It's still soft enough. And they're really good cold like that. Like the rhubarb, especially, I think just the flavor is, I don't know what it is about it being like so cold from the
Remember
freezer.
this for the summer, because when it's hot and you want something
refreshing
and sweet and delicious. Oh yeah, I love it.
Yeah.
So,
well, clearly I enjoyed these very much. I loved both of them. And I had to ask, because, I was talking about my fruit cake, matrimonial cake memory.
But of course.
So I asked my sisters, because sometimes I'm like, did this really happen, or did my mind just sort of make this up? Like maybe as a kid, I just didn't like date squares. And so I thought it was a fruit cake or something. And they were like, nope, it was definitely fruit cake. And it was the Catholic side of the family, not the Mennonite side of the family. So I don't know if it was just a family thing. One of my sisters told me my granny used to make the cake.
Okay.
So I have no idea if that's was just a family thing or what. But definitely the put it under your pillow and try to dream about your future husband. That was a tradition that was not exclusive to us. That was like definitely a Canadian prairie tradition. I don't know further than that.
Yeah.
But anyways.
Oh, very interesting.
Yes, I would much, much rather have a date square. This sort of matrimonial cake.
Yeah.
Yeah. I'm not a fruitcake fan, so I say scrap that. If anyone's still doing it out there, scrap it and do this one.
Yeah. Friends of my parents are having their 50th wedding anniversary, and my dad was telling me that he still has a slice of their wedding cake.
What?
I know.
Don't eat it now.
Don't eat it, right? But I was like, oh, is it like a date square or is it a fruitcake? And it's a fruitcake.
See?
So you're not alone.
Oh.
I couldn't ask him about dreaming about his future husband by putting it under his pillow, though.
Boys didn't do it, just the girls
This
did.
wasn't a boy's tradition, so I had no one to ask further. But when dates go on sale, this is a great, so good. It is so quick and easy to do. I pack these in my kids' lunches.
They're great for like hiking.
Yeah.
It's something to take with you that's got some energy in it.
Yeah, these are delicious. I had no idea that this was a type of wedding cake.
Yeah, who knew? I think if I were to have a wedding, I'm not having another wedding, but if I were, maybe I'd have that instead of the big, I mean, I didn't have one of those cakes either, but
No, neither of us had wedding cakes. So let's just say this is
are we to talk about weddings?
Wedding cake.
But if we were to have weddings, we would just have date squares because they're the best.
Yeah. If you didn't have a wedding cake, let's call this anniversary cake. Because this is gonna, well, as you know, it's my anniversary, like very soon here, one of these days. So.
So make another batch because your family ate them all.
I'll make some more. So I have another pound of dates that I can turn into this. And
then put it under your pillow and see who you dream of. And if it's not your husband, well, got something to break to you, honey.
We'll just keep quiet about that.
Oh, okay. And now for the fine print. For links to recipes and many other random things we talked about in this episode, check out the show notes or our website, www.threekitchenspodcast.com. Join us on Instagram, Facebook, Threads, YouTube, and TikTok to see what we're cooking up next. And if you love the show, tell a friend. Word of mouth is the #1 way people learn about new podcasts. Thanks for listening. I hope there's someone out there.
I hope there's someone out there too.